Good evening and welcome to another Candid conversation. We are so happy that you were able to join us for tonight's discussion. Quick PSA before we get started. Please remember to type in your question in either the comment box or in the link found in the description box. After our speaker is done, they will then answer your questions, which will prove to be difficult if there are no questions to answer. So please remember that a conversation requires more than one person, so do your part. With that being said, relax, type in your question, and let's have a conversation.
Hey guys, Bobby Bovell here, one of your virtual pastors, back with you at Mount Pisgah for Candid Conversations. Today, our topic is, how do I build authentic relationships? There is a biblical text that I'd like to share with you, which is from 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8, which says, "So deeply do we care for you that we're determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our own selves as well, because you've become very dear to us." I'd like to use this particular text to highlight three things that I believe will enable you to have authentic relationships. The first one is communication, the second one is empathy, and the third one is honesty. Let's start out with communication. It's been noted that when many people are communicating, i.e. there is a messenger and there is a receiver of that message, when people are trying to communicate with one another, it's often the case that the listener is maybe not actively listening. Instead of trying to understand what the person on the other end of the conversation is saying, perhaps they are thinking about what they're going to say next. So it's not really active listening. It's a sort of ping pong where it's almost as if there is a competition happening in terms of who's going to win the conversation. But our objective in communication is not to win the conversation. And then whenever we speak with someone, if we want to develop an authentic relationship with them, and reflect something of the image of God, and encourage that person and inspire that person, and in turn be inspired and encouraged by the person that you're speaking with yourself, then we have to really be conscious of not trying to win a conversation, but trying to understand the conversation. I was reading the actor Matthew McConaughey's autobiography, and in it, he recounts a story about once when he has a conversation with someone and he is berated by them for trying to go on either side of the conversation in terms of agreeing or disagreeing, when all the person wanted was to be understood. When we go into a communication with somebody, the relationship is going to be authentic, then it has to be based on wanting to come to a place of mutual understanding. So we have to be listening actively to what the person is saying, sometimes repeating their words for clarification. What I hear you saying is this. It sounds like you mean this, just to make sure that you're not misunderstanding and putting words in the person's mouth, perhaps. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and before you can finish your sentence, they finish your sentence for you and give you the words? It's a classic example of poor communication, because there are a lot of words that could come at the end of that sentence, and you may not be right about which one it is. So let the person speak for themselves, listen, try to get clarification. And in many cases, there are lots of times when people are repeating themselves in the conversation and repeating facts and information. We need to try and stay clear of that. It doesn't mean that your communication is going to be perfect, because communication takes a massive amount of energy, and a lot of our communication is non-verbal. So we also have to think about how open we are, whether or not we've got our arms crossed, whether or not we're giving off signals of being closed to what the person is saying to us. We need to be really open in our communication, open and active in our listening. And this is a real key to how we can develop authentic relationships. They don't happen without a real level of communication, without a real level of understanding and a sort of coming together of minds. Now, what we could do is use this method. Firstly, let the person speak, don't interrupt them. Secondly, once they've finished speaking, then you repeat what they've said for clarification. What I hear you saying is this. And then you let them repeat it or clarify anything that you might have gotten wrong. Once they've repeated what you've said back to them and clarified anything that is wrong, then you can ask, well, that's great. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that? Is there anything that's missing? Then you listen actively again. And then in the end, you ask them, okay, well, what do you want to do about this? Because sometimes we go straight in to giving advice. We go straight in to try and fix the person's problem. And a lot of times people just want to be listened to instead of trying to be fixed. Let's move on to the next area, which I mentioned in the start. That's empathy. Empathy is a great way for us to develop authentic relationships. Whenever you're speaking with someone, just like Jesus always did, he had pity on people when he spoke to them, the text says. In other words, he saw himself in their shoes. He tried to sustain their emotion and reflect something of their experience in his own experience. This is empathy. It's different to sympathy. Sympathy is when you say, I know exactly how you feel. And the reality is we don't know how people feel. Their emotions are their emotions, and they need to be allowed to have those emotions. If someone's angry, don't tell them not to be angry, because anger is just an emotion. It's not good or bad. It's actually neutral, right? The Bible says, be angry, but sin not. In other words, your anger is not the issue. It's what you do with it. If your anger leads you to violence, then it's bad. If your anger leads you to seek for social justice and to fix the wrongs in this world, then your anger is not a bad thing because you're using it to fuel a good thing. If your anger makes you work harder, if your anger makes you sober up and take your life more seriously, then your anger can be a good thing. So don't try to take away people's emotions or deny them their emotions. Let them feel what they're feeling. Empathy and authentic relationships is not about trying to fix someone so that they behave or react in a way that you want them to. Oftentimes, the emotion that we feel is the right response to the situation. I mean, if you have been mistreated, then anger may be the right emotion for that situation. If you've lost someone, then sadness may be the right emotion for that situation. A lot of times people try to talk you out of your emotions and they try to give you their emotions. But authentic relationships are not about us having the same emotions. They're about us having a mutual understanding of where each other are so that we can help each other along the way and support each other and encourage each other so that we can be the people that we're supposed to be and we can keep each other going, right? So it's important. Empathy is not sympathy. I know how you feel. Empathy is I can imagine how you must be feeling. And in that way, you allow that person to have their own experience. A lot of times people come in with their own story of what happened to them when you start to talk about your experience and something that has been difficult for you or something that has been good. And a lot of times this is a way of developing rapport and camaraderie. And I wouldn't rule it out completely, but just be careful when it comes to trying to match someone with a story. If someone's talking about having been bullied or having experienced a racist incident or having experienced a situation with their in-laws or whatever it is they've experienced, let them have their experience and empathize with them without trying to shove your own version of the same story in there, because it may not help. It might, but it may not. So be careful with that. Empathy is really important. It's about me saying, I can imagine what it's like to walk in your shoes. And when we do this, we invariably develop authentic relationships, because that person that you're speaking to knows that you have some sense of where they are in life. And you can say to them, that happened to me too, later on perhaps, and allow them to then listen to your story. But whatever we do, we're never trying to minimize anyone else's feelings. We're trying to empathize with them where they are so that they can be encouraged along their journey, right? And then the third way that we can develop authentic relationships is through honesty. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to share everything that's happening in your mind and in your heart. That's not what I mean by honesty. Um, Honesty and truth are not always synonymous. In other words, you have a truth to a situation and you feel that that is the way things are because you decided that your experience of things is the normative experience, right? Which we all do. We often don't see the world the way that it is. We see the world the way that we are. But I'm talking about when you have an emotion and a feeling that is honest, it might not always be true. And if you have something that's true, it might not always be honest. You see what I mean? I might say, I feel bad today, or I feel like I'm a loser, or I feel like I am not successful, or some kind of negative statement that I could come up with from my inner dialogue, which I also have to always keep in check. But when I come up with that statement, it may be my honest feeling, but it's not necessarily the truth, is it? It's just the way that I'm feeling. And when I talk about honesty, I'm talking about a willingness to be open about who you are with this other person, not necessarily telling them everything about you and your inner world and your inner life. I mean, you can do that if you want, and some people have a sort of open and honest policy where they tell everyone everything almost as soon as they've met them, but that sometimes can overwhelm people, and you need to be careful that you're not misunderstood, because you're talking about your honesty. You can be saying, oh, I feel bad today, and you're venting and talking about an experience you've had, and the person goes away thinking that you're negative, and you're not negative. You're just venting and you're sharing your honest feeling from that particular day, but it doesn't mean that it's something that you define yourself by. It's something that you have experienced as a flow of consciousness that's going through you, and then once you've said it, it's gone. But then when you've made those communications to the other person, they might think that you're just a negative person, and you're not. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to honesty, it's not about always being completely like an open book where you just tell everyone everything that's going on, all the thoughts that are coming inside your head. It's not everything we think that we say, right? But being honest in the sense that you can actually be open and share with them how you feel, share with them what they mean to you, talk about how they've encouraged you, talk about the good things that you see in them, the different attributes of their personality and character, and how good they are at their work, or how good they are with their children, or how happy you are to have them in your life, or how much you enjoy their vibe. Be honest and be authentic, and don't worry about whether or not anyone is believing everything you're saying. You should just be totally true to yourself in terms of any compliments you want to give them, or any even challenging things you want to say to them about the way that they may be treating you, that they may be overstepping your boundaries. You need to be really honest about how you communicate with them, give them your operator's manual, so to speak. As Oprah Winfrey said, we teach people how to treat us. And oftentimes people aren't mind readers. So you need to tell them if you're feeling upset about something. They can't really tell by just looking at you necessarily. It's important that they have the opportunity for you to be honest about how you feel so that they can make changes and you can make changes too. And I believe that once we focus on those three areas, communication, on empathy, and on honesty, then we're going to go into a phase where we can develop really proper, authentic relationships that are a testimony to the spirit of God and how your vibe attracts your tribe, and that will be people who are not just sharing information about the gospel, but are actually living, breathing examples of the gospel itself. God bless you. This has been another Candid Conversations. Please, if you have any comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. See you soon. Peace. Hey guys, thanks for following on tonight. I can see that the questions come in. How do you make new friends when you have problems trusting people? That is a massive one. And depending on why you have those problems in terms of trusting someone and trusting new people, it can be more or less difficult, right? If you have experienced betrayal, or you experienced that people haven't been honest about who they are, or if you personally are in a tricky, a challenging place in your life, then it can be really difficult to trust people or believe that they want to genuinely be friends with you and that they are not just trying to use you or get something out of you. It can be challenging based on your experience, right, is what I'm saying. Or it can be easier based on perhaps you already have had people that have been straight up with you, etc. Well, I would say that you don't go straight in being all 100% in terms of what you share about yourself and how much you let this person into your life. You test the waters a little bit, and you begin slowly by spending some time with this person, maybe online or if in person if you can, and then starting to see what type of person they are. But the reality is that we can't 100% be certain that we're not going to get hurt when we trust new people. That comes with the territory. What you can do is begin to use some time with this person, and then be ready that if they start to perhaps mistreat you or act in a disrespectful way, when they feel like they've got a little bit of power in the situation, then you can decide, right, I'm not going to pursue this as a friendship. I won't allow this person into my life, if that makes sense. So if you have problem trusting people, I would say make sure that you take baby steps, spend a little bit of time with the person, and then you can open up more and more, sort of like an onion, if you will. I hope that makes sense. All right, next question is, do you think opposite genders can maintain a friendship without developing a love interest? This is a big one, and there are some people, of course, who believe that it's impossible for men and women to have platonic relationships. They just believe that it's impossible, because they think that on the man's side there is always going to be romantic or erotic feelings that begin to rise to the surface, or vice versa, that it's going to be the woman who does it in a sort of platonic friendship. They will always develop into somebody wanting to take it to a romantic level. I don't believe that that's true. I believe that it is possible
for men and women to have platonic friendships and relationships. And a lot of it has got to do with your personality. And a lot of it has got to do with the types of people that you choose to be friends with in the first place. If you have the type of personality where it's really easy for you to jump into a romantic situation with pretty much anybody, then it's not about if you're in a friendship with a man or woman. It's about the fact that you have some challenges in terms of falling in love too easily, or believing that there's a romantic or turning everything into a romantic situation. Like there are some people who see others not as people as such. They see them as objects, people who they can direct their erotic desires on. And if that's the way that you are, then you need to be careful about how you engage with people that you could potentially find attractive down the line, even if it's not at first glance. You see what I mean? So yeah, I believe that it's possible for opposite genders to maintain a friendship without developing love interest. 100%. I believe that's possible, yes. And I think that it's pretty unhealthy to say that you can't be friends with someone who there is a possible that there could have possibly been a romantic connection with. Because let's face it, if we're not able to sort of be a friend to someone without there being that spectre of an erotic or romantic possibility hanging over the situation all the time, then is it really about the friendship? It's probably not. It's about our inability to be normal with people, and we need to probably think about some type of therapy or some type of way of working out why it's not possible for us to just like close off that particular response to somebody. It should be possible, right? I mean, people have friendships with their brothers and sisters, so why not with other people? Make them a brother or sister then. Make them an honorary brother or sister if you're having trouble. All right, so how do you make authentic relationships when people around you act fake, saying one thing and treating you another? Well, the answer is that you don't. You can't have an authentic relationship with someone when they're effectively gaslighting you, mistreating you, perhaps insulting you, or talking about you behind your back, or 1 minute they are your best friend and they're showering you with compliments, and then the next minute they're bullying you and teasing you and leaving you out of things. Then you can't really develop an authentic friendship. It's not an authentic friendship. It's a relationship with someone who has some kind of challenge towards you. Perhaps they're jealous, or perhaps they feel that you are not as good as they are, and or they see you as a potential victim, as a potential sort of cannon fodder for their own feelings that they are experiencing at that time. And it's not about you, but maybe they've been feeling bad in life and something's going on, so they're going to use you as a place to put their frustrations and put their anger because they're having a bad day. And people develop, patterns with others, and there's this, some people will bring out the best or the worst in others. If you have two dogs that are badly behaved, only when they are together, when you leave those two dogs together, they always tear up the house or do something crazy when they're together. Then the best thing to do is to keep those two dogs separate. You see what I mean? So if you are in a relationship with someone and they act fake, you know, fake friends showing fake love to you straight up to your face, so to speak, then you need to make sure that you get out of that friendship or set boundaries and say, listen, when you do such and such, when you make those jokes about me, when you talk to me in that particular way, when you react to me in that particular way, when you behave in this way towards me, it makes me feel like this, and I don't like feeling like this, and I'd like you to stop doing that. Make it really clear, because maybe the person doesn't know that that you're perceiving them as being fake, right? And then and see how they do. If they manage to stop it, if they manage to listen to you and take on board the fact that you're challenged by their behavior, that it's going over your boundaries, you've got to set boundaries, man, then you can sort of work out if you're going to continue in the friendship or not. If you make your feelings clear and the person still is stepping on your toes, then man, you need to think about your mental health, think about the way that you feel after you've been in contact with this person, and then say, do you know what, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to get myself out of the situation. And if you can't completely get yourself out of the situation because it's a work situation or a family situation where you're going to have to see the person, then just limit the amount of time that you actually speak with them. Try to create some physical distance between you and them. An extra meter might do all the good in the world. And just try not to engage with them in any real meaningful way. It doesn't mean you have to have authentic relationships with everyone. I don't believe that we can all be having authentic relationships with everyone, because there's only a certain amount of people you can really keep that close where you have that level of authenticity. And if you're in a friendship with someone where that's challenging, then I would suggest that you think about finding someone else to be authentic with, other than this person who clearly doesn't get you. You know what I mean? All right. I think those were all of our questions for tonight. It's been lovely sharing on this topic. How can I build authentic relationships? I pray for you that you have great relationships in your life. You deserve that. Life is too short, or life is too long for you to not be in authentic relationships. No fake relationships are not going to serve us, especially as we move further into this pandemic. We really need to know, as we move out of it, we really need to have people that have got our back and are a blessing to us as we seek to be a blessing to them. So thanks very much for your time. It's been wonderful. Bob Bovell, one of your virtual pastors here at Mount Pisgah, and I'm wishing you a fantastic week. Peace.
Thank you for joining us for tonight's Candid Conversation. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as click the bell notifications so that way you are notified every time we go live or post a video. Have any questions, comments, thoughts? Be sure to click the link found in the description box and let us know what's good. And as always, ain't no judgment on this side. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms so that way you stay in the know every time something is happening here at Mount Pisgah. As always, see you next time.